Well, fall is here. It feels like winter is here this morning. I'm joined by our garden guy, Derek Thomas from Thomas Landscapes. It's a chilly morning.
Yeah, and when the wind blows, it's even worse,
Yes,
right?
it is.
I mean, wow.
But appropriate, I guess, for what we're going to be talking about today.
Well, it's definitely time. And the thing about it is, as people are starting to downsize and things like that, we're getting more and more people who have little patios or little balconies. And I love container gardens. I could do like a segment a week on container gardens. But this is the really, really good time. Like, you see this plant here?
Yeah.
That's a fall blooming camellia. That
Okay.
plant will bloom from now until December.
Really?
In your winter garden.
Very
But the
good.
great thing is you can get them in a size that is container appropriate for your front porch.
Uh-huh.
So as you start to think about these wonderful winter containers, now these are all given to us from our friends at Johnson's,
Okay.
and they've got some great ideas for decorating the front.
Okay.
But things like this herb will last all through the season. Your peppers will dry up. But when you start to think about things like the Swedish ivy, what you can start to think about now is how to change that out. Because with the cool temperatures or cold temperatures coming through this weekend, these plants may get frostbitten, they may get blackened. But a plant like this snapdragon, you can pop that into this container, and these flowers will last for quite some time.
Okay.
And the plant is cold hardy. So when you start to think about that, think about what you can do not to get rid of the containers on your porch, but to actually segue your containers.
Into
Like
a
you see
different-
this wonderful Penstenium grass. Now, once we start to get cooler, it's going to turn brown. What you can do is you can change that out. My suggestion with that is to use something like this Carex. This looks fall and winter appropriate. This plant will actually stay this color all winter, and it'll last in your landscape. And once again, what you're doing is you're not getting rid of the whole container.
Right.
You're just changing part of it out.
Right.
Now, what about if you wanted to create a whole new container? And like I say, people with small balconies and stuff like that.
Very common now.
Very common. Think about things like this. This Dusty Miller plant will stay like this all winter long, okay? The snapdragon that I talked about. Here's our herb again, okay? This is called icicles. It's a licorice plant. What I'm gonna do is we're gonna pop this in there, start with that. And now we wanna add a little bit of color. And the thing to think about when you're designing a container is different contrasting textures and different colors.
Sure.
What I'm looking at now, things like this fiber optic grass would look really, really good with
Is that
it.
what that's called?
That's called a fiber optic
Oh, that's
grass,
cool.
and if you look at it, it looks like pieces of fiber
Exactly,
optic, right?
exactly.
But what I decided to do was to jazz it up just a bit, bring the kitchen to the garden, and we're gonna add a little bit of sage. This is garden sage that you can actually use for cooking.
Gives it some variety.
What it actually does is, it's picking up on the theme of the green container.
Right.
You've got the purples in the sage, and then you've got your licorice plant that looks nice and almost holiday-like.
Yeah, it's great. I like that.
But
I like that.
take the time this weekend just because it's cold. Remember, you can get out there. Things like evergreens. Look at the pencil holly. That's a great, great plant. If we were to change out one of our containers, that's going to give you some height. This plant right behind it, Tony, which has got this beautiful fall foliage,
Right.
that's a Nandina. That plant is going to stay that color all winter. It's not changing its leaves. That's its winter foliage.
Now, can I ask you a question? As you mentioned these and the snapdragons, is that
Snapdragons,
what
correct.
Do they, for the winter season, the fall and winter, do we have to cover them or anything? Tucker's talking about your tender vegetation. This will be hardy and it'll be okay.
Now, that's a great question. Tender vegetation would be like the Swedish ivy.
Okay.
This will be blackened by the frost or
Gotcha.
the freeze. The snapdragons, they won't bloom. But look at how attractive the foliage is.
Sure,
the
right,
foliage will not be blackened.
Gotcha.
This foliage is cold hardy. And it just depends on the type of the plant. If you don't know, ask a place like Johnson's where you've got a reputable plant person on staff
Right.
that can answer your questions, or follow me on @ThomasGardenGuy. My Twitter handle.
Yep, and you can get your
and you can
questions
get the
answered there.
questions here. Yeah, because a lot of people wanted to know about this.
Good stuff, man. It has
Yeah.
been a pleasure doing these with you.
Yeah,
moving
Tony,
to
we're
the
gonna-
night
we're gonna
shows. Yeah,
miss
maybe we can do
you.
some of this at night
Yeah,
too.
maybe, bring me in.
That would be great. All
All
right,
right.
Derek, thank you. Now,